Good afternoon. Almost from last 8 months, each exporter was eager, or rather he was rather counting the days when this new scheme is going to be announced. The RoDTEP was talked about at least 2 years back, 3 years back. Before that, textile has got RoSCTL, and all of a sudden, exporters were not entitled, or their MEIS benefit was restricted to the extent of certain amount. Then site was blocked. Exporter was struggling to get the better bottom line, and it was stated in the last November that effective from 1st January, whatever the shipping bills will be there, provided you give the declaration, you will be entitled for RoDTEP. How much? Nobody was aware. When? Nobody was aware. I remember my first boss used to always say, whenever you want to know the government scheme, you always talk about GKW. GKW is not that company's name which is well known for fasteners, but GKW's when God will know. How? God will know. How much? God will know. So God knows when, what, how much, and all questions only God knows, and that is what was the stage even today for us. And for us, for exporters, as far as schemes are concerned, God is nothing but our government, central government. Ministry of Commerce is our friend, philosopher and guide. But let us see by understanding of today's RoDTEP scheme whether it satisfies the expectation of trade and industry. If you want to go back on the history, I remember well back earlier from Krishi Vishesh Service Serve from India scheme, and in 2007 a new scheme which was announced, which was a focus market scheme and focus product scheme. What was the objective? Objective which was to have the level playing field to balance high freight cost as compared to Indian to export market than that of other export countries. That was one reason, and that is the reason it was called as a focus market scheme. It was mainly for the export promotion and level playing field for equating the market, that is the freight cost. And focus product scheme was mainly India was lacking on the infrastructure, so making a level playing field for matching the infrastructure inefficiencies and other associated costs, and that was the reason in 2007 focus market scheme and focus product scheme was announced. When 2015 new policy has come, 2015 and 19, that new policy has introduced MEIS and ACIS. The objective associated for that scheme, not launching a FPS and means rather scrapping the focus market scheme and focus product scheme. It was again to make a balancing level playing field for the infrastructure inefficiencies and associated cost involved when you manufacture the goods in India and export. So objective of focus product scheme and focus markets MEIS was almost the same. Now when from 2007 this scheme was going on and MEIS was made up very much popular, rather number of exporters has considered this in their export pricing to make their production, to make their pricing competitive in the international market and to bag, and therefore they definitely grew the exports. One of the fact was there. But it was never there that it was uncertain. That uncertainty only began when US government has launched the case against India, stating that we are violating the principles of WTO agreement. What was the WTO agreement? Developing countries can give the subsidies, and other than that, there will be level playing field. No taxes will be exported. It means the value of your goods exported or value of your service exported should not have any incidence of any duties. That is indirect tax, which otherwise consumer bears. And that was the lead principle, apart from other 11 principles in WTO agreement. Now, US government has launched the case against India, stating that Indian government is subsidizing the export by way of providing certain schemes, and one of the schemes which was objected based on the quoting the para of the foreign trade policy 3.01, 3.03, that focus market scheme talks about giving the subsidies by way of freight, and second, infrastructural inefficiencies. So this is the way of a government subsidy, and unfortunately we could not convince, or rather in our arguments before the appellate forum, before the forum of WTO, the panel, that there are number of other taxes which are inbuilt, and for that no rebate or no subsidies are provided. No exemption has been given, no ITC is given, no set-off is given, and it becomes a part of cost. So today we are violating the WTO agreement. That type of argument was not taken, and unfortunately we lost the case. Panel hold that India is passing the subsidy through MAS scheme, and thereafter, though we have made the appeal before the appellate committee, thereafter MAS scheme rethinking was going on. It was accepted fact by the central government that today some of the taxes, whether the state taxes, local government taxes, or central taxes, are built up in the prices because there are lot of taxes which is collected by the central government and state government. No input tax credit is given, or no set-off is given, no rebate is given. And therefore, it becomes the cost, and it costs, that tax cannot become the cost, and that is what is the WTO agreement. If you see what are those taxes, let us say in petroleum there is an entry tax, there is excise duty, there is a VAT on petrol, diesel, CNG, PNG, coal cess, which are used for the fuel as well as the transmission, and transportation cost is almost having more than 40% cost of the fuel, and out of that more than 70% taxes are there. So as such, if you see the freight cost, if you assume to be a 5%, of that almost 28% is tax, and that is borne in the cost. Let's say the state electricity duty, that is also not given the subsidies. Let's take the APMC tax, which the agricultural produce pays, toll tax, stamp duties, which are all of indirect taxes, but for which no input tax credit is given. Even in the GST or excise, you see there was never the 100% input tax credit which was allowed. Even today, if you see the section 17, there is a block credit. Lot of credit on certain items is not been eligible, but it becomes the cost of export. When you give the pre-sample for exports, on that also you will have to reverse the ITC. That is what the departmental stand. It means today also such cost becomes the part of the cost, and it is against the principle of this. And therefore government thought this is the way we should collect that information, and government notified and given to the industry, their associations develop the form R1, R2 and R3. They have given 3 times extension to get that information. But unfortunately what happens is, when the information was sought for, that was so clumsy, so lengthy and so clumsy, and it was required to be certified by the chartered accountant or a cost accountant. What has resultantly happened? When there is no simple way, response becomes very poor. So, at least only 8 to 10% of industries have responded to the call and fill up the form R1, R2, R3 through Export Promotion Council. And for that, RoDTEP committee was formed to decide the rates. And finally, the RoDTEP rates were notified on 14th August. Now, whether the RoDTEP is matching with the MEIS, whether it will have your cost subsumed or not, I am very sure whatever the cost you might have incurred and what you might have certified in the form R1, R2 and R3, it has not come to that extent. When I see the analysis of the rate, what rate, even those industries who has filled up the form of R1, R2, R3, duly certified by the chartered accountant or a cost accountant, was not accepted by the government, and the RoDTEP panel committee has almost made 1/3 of that or lower than that. This is the saddest part of the story. So, in that, my earnest request will be, let this RoDTEP, whatever you will be entitled, you consider as a contingency benefit, or that is the benefit which will meet your contingency cost, but not the object for which that was designed. And when we make a MEIS and RoDTEP, as such it is not comparable. Both are not comparable, let us not compare that. Let us not make that error which you were used to consider MEIS in the pricing. Don't consider RoDTEP benefit in the pricing, it will not be correct. You will incur the losses. Whether all the products are covered. Now when government makes the press release, they said we have included more items in the RoDTEP than the top what was there in the drawback. I don't know why you are comparing again non-comparables. Today, the funniest part is food industry, tobacco, salt, sulfur, ores, that is the minerals, and chemical, inorganic chemical, organic chemicals, pharmaceuticals and fertilizers are not covered. Now when you read the press release, you feel doing good job in India is the penalty. What is the press release Commerce Secretary has given? That where RoDTEP has not been announced, those industries are doing well, they don't need that support. First thing is, this sentence has to be condemned. We are not asking any subsidy. Let the government know that industry doesn't need subsidies from you. But industries need to have that mechanism that they don't bear your taxes in their export product and services. Don't give us any subsidies. But don't collect what you have committed to the world, that you will not collect any taxes on exports. Now here you are collecting the tax and you are not paying it also. You are not giving by the way of scheme also. And you are seeing you are doing well in the exports in spite of not having this benefit. Your export has grown. Whether I did a wrong thing. I did for my national pride. I did it for the world to grow. I did it for making our US dollar 5 trillion economy. I contributed my role. And in spite of that, when that press release comes, it is a hit on the exporters. I think this type of attitude is not acceptable. Iron and steel, articles of iron and steel is also not covered. And okay, if you are not covered, you say we are working out and will give. But you blatantly talk something which is absolutely irrational, stating that this sector is doing well in spite of this effort, benefits, and that is the reason RoDTEP is not given. That is one negative most factor which I condemn. While I accept that this RoDTEP has been given, something is better than nothing. But one again uncertainty which has been given by the government, that if government kitty for budget is over for RoDTEP, you will not get it. What is this talking about? Anyway, good message for what I get it from this. Whenever you are entitled, please obtain the refund, don't keep pending and get that money. It is your money, it is your hard-earned money, and not by begging or not by government subsidies. It was your right, which otherwise all exporters in the world gets it. With this, let us listen from Mr. Manoj, who will be explaining us all the provisions of RoDTEP, how it has to be gone, what are the things, what comparison will be there, that he will be dealing with, and then we will have the question answer session if left something or explanation. Thank you, Manoj.
Yes, thank you, Nawal sir, for setting up the context. He has rightly said, उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से बताया कि all exporters were waiting for this scheme since last 7-8 months. I relate this with एक common जो अपने life में experience आता है. If a big starrer movie is going to release, we are waiting for that movie कि वो movie कैसा है, क्या है. और जब वो एक्चुअली रिलीज होता है तो ज़रूरी नहीं कि स्टार बड़ा रहा तो वो मूवी भी अच्छा रहेगा. सो दिस RoDTEP हैज़ द सिमिलर केस. नाउ वेदर दिस इज वी हैव बीन वेटिंग फॉर दिस स्कीम सिंस लास्ट 7-8 मंथ्स. क्या परसेंटेज आएंगे, क्या रेट्स आएंगे, व्हाट ऑल थिंग्स वुड बी देयर, विच एक्सपोर्ट वुड बी एलिजिबल फॉर इट. And after waiting for 8 months, now the scheme is in front of us and jury is out. Everybody is entitled to have his opinion and everybody is correct in their senses. But if you look at most of the views or reviews about this scheme is exporters are not fully comfortable with this scheme simply because of the fact that it do not give the benefit what they were getting in the earlier scheme. And it's very logical because they've been used to get 2 to 3%, 5% MEIS on their export of goods. And suddenly that 2 and 3% comes to 0.5% on 1%, then it becomes really difficult. Many a times people have even priced their products considering what MEIS benefit they get. But now they have to really look back into their pricing. So with this background, let's go through the scheme, the process, the rates, and ultimately we'll conclude with what way forward we should do with this scheme. So now let's first go to the legal background of RoDTEP scheme. The new policy is under Chapter 4 of the Foreign Trade Policy. So as we all know that foreign trade policy is notified by the Department of Commerce. So one thing is very clear, that this scheme would be notified by Department of Commerce. However, it would be administered by the Department of Revenue. यानी सिंपल वर्ड्स में एक जन स्कीम बनाएगा और दूसरा डिपार्टमेंट वो स्कीम को मॉनिटर करेगा. इसमें आई एम जस्ट क्रॉसिंग माई फिंगर्स दैट what Department of Commerce notifies, the Department of Revenue implement it in the same spirit. It should not happen that Department of Commerce proposes and Department of Revenue disposes. I just crossing my fingers that in implementation, whatever has been promised in policy is implemented by Department of Revenue in the same spirit and in the same way it is intended. Okay, so the objective of scheme is to refund the unrefunded. So the objective is absolutely crystal clear. They want to refund the unrefunded duties and taxes which are borne on the export of goods. Nawal sir has rightly stated those duties and taxes which are borne on the exported goods. On top of that, this scheme also says that we want to also give the taxes which are gone into prior stages. यानी मेरे raw material or transportation of raw material, whatever taxes are becoming cost, I should get those refunded with the same objective that the taxes are not getting exported. So all these indirect taxes, duties which are becoming cost to the exporter, the intent of this scheme is it should be refunded to the exporter. And the what tagline they have used is refund the unrefunded duties and taxes to the exporter. So that's the broad scheme objective which they have defined. Now let's go to the scheme highlights, some of the highlights of the scheme. This RoDTEP support would be eligible for exported goods which are exported at a notified rate as a percentage of our FOB value. So majority of goods you will get a fixed percentage on your FOB value of exports. In some cases, however, the government has defined a fixed amount for RoDTEP also. Like for wood and wood article, if you look at it, they have defined per metric ton, like they may get 400 rupees, they may get 200 rupees per metric ton. However, in majority of cases, the RoDTEP support is in percentage of FOB value of export. Also, it is important to note that in some cases, there is a value cap which is also notified. It means that the percentage wise you may have more benefit, but there would be restriction in terms of value cap. The benefit will not extend that per unit value cap which is mentioned in that appendix 4R. Now who decides these percentages as in policy? So what the government has done is they have formed a RoDTEP committee. That RoDTEP committee will decide the percentages, and this RoDTEP committee would be formed under Department of Revenue. So Department of Revenue, जैसे मैंने बोला कि Department of Revenue would be the implementing agency for this scheme. Now that Department of Revenue will form a committee of RoDTEP. Of course, that committee would have representative from DGFT, some of the experts from relevant ministries, the expert members would also be part of that committee. So this committee would have lot of powers, and that committee would decide the rate. Another important aspect of this is there would be overall budget allocated by Ministry of Finance in consultation with Department of Commerce. So the budget would be allocated by Department of Finance for this scheme. And interesting part is what the scheme says, that The scheme will operate under overall budgetary framework for each financial year. Prima facie अगर हम read करें, so we will feel that it's okay. I mean, the budget would be given of Ministry of Finance and all those things. But if you look at the intent of these two lines, it is very important that they say that paisa khatam, scheme khatam. So what it means that there is no certainty that you will get those percentages forever. Because if the budget is over, they may come up with the restriction for getting the benefit. जैसे last time MEIS पे उन्होंने restriction लाया था कि we will not give more than 2 crore MEIS per IC. Similarly, they are envisaging that for RoDTEP, we will allocate the budget, and based on that budget, we will monitor that budget every year, and accordingly the scheme would be fine tuned. शब्द बहुत अच्छा यूज किया है उन्होंने. The scheme would be fine tuned. But what it means for exporter is, today there may be a fixed percentage which is given, but you may not get that percentage forever. अगर budget खत्म हो गया तो there would be restriction in terms of getting that benefit. So my next slide says that only, that whenever the budget is getting exceeded, and in order to not to exceed the budget, the necessary changes would be done in the scheme. Another important highlight of this scheme is this benefit is subject to realization of export proceed. If you are going to realize, then only you are going to get this benefit. यानी any free of cost export of goods will not be eligible for this scheme. So the realization is important condition for getting this scheme. Now how this realization would be monitored, it is yet to come. The government has issued, the DGFT has issued Appendix 4R for giving the details of goods which are entitled for our RoDTEP and percentage of rebate eligible. The identified export, there are close to 8,555 goods for which the RoDTEP is given. Now there are certain ineligible export which the department has said for these export there would not be eligible benefit. Now which are those? First, export of imported goods. And if I am re-exporting the goods which I have imported, then I will not be entitled for this RoDTEP scheme. So all re-export transaction I will not be entitled. Then export through transshipment, meaning export are originating in third country and just coming into India for transshipment. Then also I am not eligible for this scheme. Fair enough, very clear. Then export of products which are subjected to minimum export price or export duties. Again, very clear and correct also. Then products which are restricted, prohibited for this under the schedule 2. And then deemed export as notified under chapter 7 of the foreign trade policy. जैसे if I am supplying to advance authorization holder, if I am supplying to EPCG, so those will not be eligible for getting these benefits. Then which are next ones? Supplies of product manufactured by DTI units and supplied to SEZ. So any goods which are supplied to SEZ, those are termed as zero rated supplies or physical export from customs perspective. However, those supplies will not be eligible for benefit of RoDTEP. That means if a domestic unit is supplying to an SEZ, that would be one of the ineligible category. Next ineligible category is product manufactured by EHTP, BTP. So electronic hardware technology park or biotechnology park, the goods are manufactured into it, those will not be eligible. Next interesting exclusion is product manufactured partly or wholly in a warehouse under section 65. That now we are calling it as a mover unit who are claiming these benefits. Those are excluded. Those units are not eligible for benefit. I don't know why. If you look at the objective of the scheme, the objective of scheme says that we want to refund the unrefunded taxes and goods. Do you mean that a mover unit or the next advance authorization or EOU, which is also ineligible, are not having those costs? Certainly those are having. उनके गुड्स में भी फ्यूल जाता है, उनके गुड्स भी रोड से ट्रांसपोर्ट होते हैं, उनके केस में भी रॉ मटेरियल सप्लायर के यहाँ पे कुछ ना कुछ कॉस्ट होता है. Then why these units are not eligible is a big question. That these units also have same GST sections, rules under which the credit is blocked. Even if it is blocked, still they are not eligible for these benefits. I really fail to understand, and I completely echo Nawal's sentiment that if you look at these exclusion categories, we feel that it is irrational, it is not rational. Next list, product which are manufactured and exported by SEZs. Again, those are excluded. Products for which you are doing job work transaction, that is, you are importing some goods, doing job work in India and exporting those goods, you are not entitled to claim these RoDTEP. Again, if you look at 13 number, the export made from non-EDI ports are also not eligible for this benefit. Again, this is a kind of a fit case where if an exporter is exporting from a non-EDI port, he should really fight for his benefit and file a writ. Because just because my export are happening from a non-EDI port, doing EDI and non-EDI is the government job, not my job. I am exporting from a port which is nearest to me. Just because it is not EDI port, I am not entitled for this benefit, which is unjustified and which is incorrect also. Because I am exporting the goods, I am realizing the money. Just because you are not able to connect that port to your EDI system, you are making it ineligible for me. And certainly I feel that this case would be further fought with the government, that you cannot make such policies where you give advantage to certain kind of exporters just because of the system integrations. That's not right. The next is, if I am exporting some goods which have been taken to use after manufacture, and if I am exporting those goods, then I am not eligible. So these are 14-15 categories of exports which are not eligible for these schemes. Now let's understand some of the important points out of these ineligible export, which we should be very clear. And this, the policy also says that export made from EOU, advance authorization, or from SEZ, the RoDTEP may be allowed based on recommendation of RoDTEP committee. So still there is an ray of hope for three categories of exporters: EOU, advance authorization, and SEZs. If you recollect, there was an internal circular issued by customs that EOUs and advance authorization will not be entitled for RoDTEP and they should not be allowed. For SEZ, Ministry of Commerce has issued a circular asking all development commissioner to instruct the units that allow them for declaration of the export benefit. The decision would be taken subsequently. However, you should look at the approach of two different departments which I was saying. One is Ministry of Commerce and one is Ministry of Revenue. The Customs Department, which is under Ministry of Revenue, has clearly stated that we will not give benefit of EOU, RoDTEP to EOU and advance authorization, issued circular to that effect, which was an internal circular. However, Ministry of Commerce has said that if you look at the intent of the scheme, these units should be allowed, and SEZs were asked to declare on their export documents that they intend to claim this benefit. So still the government has not taken decision on this, and hence the policy says that RoDTEP may be allowed based on the recommendation of RoDTEP committee. So this RoDTEP committee becomes the important committee for exporters. Based on their decisions, the extent of benefit, who will get, who will not get, what would be the ceiling, everything would be decided. So the scheme says that, as I've said, there's an ray of hope that for EOU, advance authorization and SEZ, the RoDTEP may allow. So it doesn't say that it will be allowed. The wording is it may be allowed. So still, tomorrow they may come and say that we will not give. बट कहते हैं ना, डूबते को तिनके का सहारा. सो ऐसी बात है ये. कंसिडरिंग द एक्सपोर्टर्स सिचुएशन, एटलीस्ट दे हैव रिटर्न दीज टू लाइन्स, एंड वो तिनके के सहारे पे ईओयू एडवांस ऑथराइजेशन एक्सपोर्टर्स एंड एसईजेड शुड थिंक. Interestingly, if you look at this policy again, there is no comment for goods which are getting exported from an bonded warehouse. And we know that this bonded warehouse Moore scheme is akin to EOU scheme. So I really fail to understand that for one scheme you say that we will rethink based on recommendation we will give. For other scheme you say that we will not think on it. I fail to understand the rationale why they have picked just these three schemes. Why only EOU, advance authorization and SEZ? If we look at the benefits, in fact Moore units gets the same benefit like EOU and advance authorization scheme. So why not the exports from Moore should be also eligible if they are making it eligible for EOU and advance authorization? And that is where I really see that the problem in the scheme, and we fail to understand what is the thought process going on. और जितना इसमें सोचते हैं, एक चीज बहुत लगता है कि I think the budgetary restrictions are holding them to allow the benefit to all these exporters. And that is where the problem comes. You are giving a benefit which is not clear to the exporter that whether I'll get or not. कल आपका जेब खत्म हो गया, आप बोलेंगे कि मेरा जेब खत्म हो गया, अभी मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता. How I'll decide the pricing? Nawal sir has rightly said, gone are the days. Now you should not consider this benefit from perspective of your export pricing, because you are not sure. And I see that there is no rationale behind excluding Moore units. as well as EOU advance authorization and SEZ unit, as I've said, for excluding from this scheme. Because as I was saying, and sir was also saying, the objective of scheme was to refund the unrefunded duties and taxes which are becoming cost, and these unit also suffer those costs. They don't have a privileged treatment under GST. They also pay VAT on their fuels. They also pay central excise duty on the fuel which they consume. And considering that fact, they should be allowed. And on top of that, by excluding mover, we have to understand that government has made this scheme. The mover was announced in October 19, and the government is promoting as part of Make in India. And when you are promoting certain scheme and asking people not to opt for EOUs and issuing guidelines about continuity of EOU scheme, and on the other hand you are not making them eligible for RoDTEP, so it's like you are taking 2 steps ahead and 3 steps back. That is what happening in particular for mover scheme. On one hand you are trying to promote it, on other hand you are saying if you set up a mover unit you will not be entitled for RoDTEP. Now what I am supposed to do in this case? Should I set up mover or should I continue with my DTA unit? Suppose I decide to continue as a DTA unit considering the RoDTEP benefit, and after 6 months government says that my budget is over, now I will not give. So there is an saying in Marathi, Babahi गेल्या and Dashmahi गेल्या, कि I have lost all benefits which I was supposed to get in mover, and at the same time I did not got even RoDTEP. So such kind of policy making is not good for any business decision making. So it's very important that government really relook into these ineligible categories. Now let's move on to the process of claiming RoDTEP. What would be the process? The government clearly says that they want to make it end-to-end digitized process. They don't want any manual intervention. For this piece in the policy, I really appreciate the government, which is also focus of this government, is they want to move on a digitization platform. They don't want manual intervention while giving benefits, while giving schemes. If you look at even how DGFT is functioning now, they are moving more and more on an online process. They have already made online advance authorization, they have already made online EPCG. Now they are also making online the redemption process and everything. So the focus is end-to-end digitized process. कोई भी मुझे रोकना नहीं चाहिए. If I am entitled, I should get it. There should not be any cut of anybody while getting these benefits. Nobody should demand me any percentages from what I am hardly earning that benefit. Nobody should demand that share. And with that objective, the good part of this scheme is that the process would be end-to-end digitized. So as I've said, the process would be end-to-end digitized. The process would be monitored by Ministry of Revenue, that is CBIC, Central Board of Indirect Tax and Custom would be the monitoring and implementing authority for this RoDTEP scheme. As an exporter, what I am supposed to do is I am supposed to declare on my export documents, that is shipping bill, that I intend to claim the benefit of RoDTEP. This declaration is mandatory and it's very important. The scheme talks about there would be some application form and process which would be notified in due course. So CBIC would be notifying the process of application in due course. The script would be issued in an electronic ledger. So you will get an electronic ledger on the portal maintained by CBIC under Department of Revenue, and that portal is nothing different than IceGate. So you will have an electronic credit ledger on IceGate portal. Another important point we have to look at is there would be one ledger for one I code. You may have 10 different units, but for those 10 different units, the I code is one, and you will have one ledger for all your goods which have been exported from all different units. The script, most importantly, can be utilized for payment of customs duties. And which customs duties? The customs duties which are there, which are the part of first schedule of the Custom Act. And just to tell you everybody, the first schedule of Customs Act only covers the basic customs duties. So the policy says that the script can be only utilized for basic customs duties. So no other custom duties would be eligible to be offset against this e-script. Another aspect of this script, they have made it good, which was also in case of MEIS, that this script can be transferred. It's a transferable script. You can transfer the script from one IEC holder to another IEC holder. And this transfer process is through E mode. There is no other mode. You have to compulsorily, there is no paper kind of thing. You print a paper or you get a script which you transfer in somebody's name. The transfer would happen only on E mode. As an exporter, you have to be very keen that the realization of export proceeds, as I've said earlier, as a part of scheme, realization of export proceed is compulsory for getting these benefits. Now, a question may come in your mind that does that mean that I'll get this benefit only after realization of exports like we used to get in MEIS? We used to, if you recollect in MEIS, we used to get that script only after realization. However, good part of this scheme, there are certain good parts of this scheme is that this benefit they are going to give you once you export the goods. They are not going to wait till the realization of export proceeds. You export the goods, you will get the benefit. However, the realization would be monitored. So as I've said, the good part of this scheme is once you export, they'll not wait for realization of export proceed. They will give you the benefit of it. And post giving of benefit, it would be monitored whether you have realized or not. However, how it would be monitored is yet to be clarified and notified. That how CBIC intend to monitor whether you have realized the export proceeds or not. And one thing is very clear, suppose if you don't realize your export proceeds, then the scheme says that you have to repay back the RoDTEP benefit what you have got. Whether they are going to demand interest on that repayment or not, it is not yet clarified. However, the scheme says that you will have to repay back, you will not be entitled for the benefit of RoDTEP if you don't realize your export proceed. There may be cases that you may not realize export proceed within a time limit specified under the Foreign Exchange Management Act. But if you apply to your AD Bank or RBI for extension of export proceed, then till that time you have got extension, you don't need to repay back these benefit. Once you write off or once even that extension period lapse, then this benefit you will have to repay back if you are not realizing the export proceed. So to summarize on this realization part, The good part, you get the export proceeds, you get the benefit without waiting for you realize the money, but they would be monitoring whether you are realizing or your export proceed or not. If you don't realize, then you'll have to repay back the RoDTEP benefit what you have got. The scheme also envisaged that there would be audit by CBIC. कितने ऑडिट करने वाले पता नहीं, but there would be audit of CBIC from this perspective also, from RoDTEP also. And how the client would be taken for audit? They would be taken based on the risk management system of custom RMS, which is already implemented and running. So basis that, considering what goods you are exporting, what is the profile of exporters, considering that all aspect, this risk management would decide the sample cases which would be done for the audit. And what would happen during the audit? Your export documents, your export goods or sample may be verified during the audit. So all exporters have to be very clear that this scheme envisages that there would be audit of the cases. Now we are talking about the ledger, correct? We talked about that this scheme would have an e-ledger. Many exporters may have already created these e-ledgers, but for the benefit of one who have not created, I would just quickly go through what is the process or from where I can get this or see this e-ledger. Now this e-ledger, as I have mentioned, would be on IceGate website, www.icegate.gov.in. We all know import and export documentation happens through this portal, and this portal is managed by Department of Revenue, CBIC in particular. So the ledger can be created on this website. There is an tab, Our Services, on main landing page of this website. Once you tick that, you will see RoDTEP tab under that Services tab. And once you click that, you will be directed to a login page for the RoDTEP. And once you log in with your valid credential, you will see a credit ledger appearing on the left side of the panel. And if you are not registered on IceGate, then the exporter need to register on IceGate with the DSC and based on the instructions which are given on IceGate. So as I've said, for this e-credit ledger, you have to visit IceGate. So based on this IceGate website, you will have a ledger, and this ledger will have all facilities. The ledger would have utilization facility. This ledger would also have a transfer facility that you can transfer from one user to another user from an IceGate portal. The only condition for transfer is both should have a valid e-ledgers. So the transfer would happen from one e-ledger to another e-ledger, and this would be completely digitized process. And as I've said, that I really appreciate that they are doing this scheme on completely digitized platform. Now Nawal sir has talked about rates. Now we will go through glimpses of rate. Of course, I am not going through 8,555 items. I would be going through broadly what chapter says on a broader level, what are the rates, and in comparison to that, what was the MEIS rate for that chapters. So chapter 1 and 2, live animals and meats, RoDTEP is not eligible, MEIS also was not eligible. Then chapter 3, fish and related products, the RoDTEP is in range of 0.5% to 2.6%, as against MEIS, which was 5%. You can see that 50% there is a reduction. In some cases the reduction is to the extent of 90%. Yeah. So value cap is there for some product. I was mentioning that. For fish, there is no value cap. So dairy products, the RoDTEP is in the range of 0.5% to 1.4%. The MEIS rate was 2 to 5%. Then chapter 5, products of animal origins, again the RoDTEP is in the range of 0.5%, whereas the exporter used to get a benefit of MEIS to the extent of 2%. Chapter 7, edible vegetables, RoDTEP is in the range of 2 to 4%. The MEIS was in the range of 3 to 5%. Chapter 8, edible fruits and nuts, the RoDTEP is in the range of 2.5 to 3%, and there is value cap also specified for some of the RoDTEP products. However, the MEIS for this chapter was in the range of 3 to 5% without any restriction, without any value cap. So if you are exporting goods falling under this chapter where there is a value cap as well, you have to really see what is that value cap and whether that value cap would be applicable to you or not. Chapter 9, coffee, tea and related product, the RoDTEP given is 1%, whereas the MEIS was in the range of 3 to 5%. Of course, as I've said, these chapter would have multiple products. Between these range, your product may fall. I am giving you glimpses on the basis of that entire chapter. Chapter 10, cereals, the RoDTEP is 1%, the MEIS was 5%. You can see the differences. Products of milling industry, malts, again range of RoDTEP is 1%, MEIS is 5%. Oil seeds, industrial plants, RoDTEP is 0.5% to 1%, MEIS is 3 to 5%. Chapter 13, lag, gums, raisins, RoDTEP is just 0.5%, as against what MEIS I used to get is 3 to 5%. You can see the difference. It's very huge difference which is there for chapter 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17 as well. So the RoDTEP is in the range of 0.5%. In some cases it is just 2.5%. But I used to get MEIS to the extent of 3 to 5%. Such a drastic reduction in terms of MEIS and RoDTEP what is notified. Chapter 18, the RoDTEP is again in the range of 0.5 to 1%. We used to get 3% for coca and coca preparation. Chapter 19, preparation of cereal, flours, malt foods. The range of RoDTEP is 0.5 to 1.4%, as against MEIS of 5%. Miscellaneous edible preparation under chapter 21, the range is 1 to 3%. The MEIS was 3 to 5%. The only chapter where I've got an increase is chapter 22, beverages, spirits and vinegars. The range of RoDTEP is 0.5 to 4% as against the MEIS rate of 2 to 3%. Then residue waste of food industry, again the RoDTEP is just 0.5% to 1% as against 5%. There are certain chapters like tobacco, salt, sulfur. The RoDTEP is not there as well. MEIS also was not there in these cases. Chapter 26, ores, slag, ash, RoDTEP is not there. MEIS was also not there. Chapter 27 is also same case. Now, important chapter which Nawal sir has also emphasized is inorganic chemicals, organic chemicals, pharmaceuticals and pharmaceuticals in particular. These three sectors, we always say that world's pharmacy is in India. Now when you take a pride in saying that we are the world's pharmacy, and for that pharmacy you don't give benefit for the export, it doesn't go well. These exporters also suffer those taxes which are not refunded to them even they export the goods. And considering that rationale not to give that benefit is absolutely irrational, as Nawal sir has rightly put. For fertilizers, RoDTEP is not there, even MEIS was not there. For dyeing, extracts, tanning, RoDTEP is 0.8%, whereas MEIS was in 2 to 3%. Essential oil, perfumery, the RoDTEP is in the range of 0.8 to 1.5%, whereas the MEIS was 2 to 3%. So similar would be case close to for 34 to 41 chapter. I would not take much of your time into these rates, but overall you would see that the percentages what we used to get in MEIS has been reduced. So I'm just running through this presentation for your quick review. We'll share these rates also in comparison to this. I'll come on the important aspect of engineering goods, chapter 84-85, which is talks about machinery and electronic machineries, the goods we are exporting. For chapter 84, the range is 0.5 to 2.2%, but majority of goods are into 1%. However, the MEIS was in the range of 2 to 3% for chapter 84. So you can see close to 50% reduction from MEIS. Chapter 85, the RoDTEP range is 1%, the MEIS rates are 2 to 3%. Chapter 87, vehicles and parts thereof, again the range is between 0.5% to 1.4%. However, there are per unit value also which is specified for some products, whereas the MEIS rate was 2 to 3%. So you can see from these broad level rates that in comparison to MEIS, the RoDTEP is much less, and we have to really prepare. Now I'll go to the end part of this session before we take question and answer session, and I also request Nawal sir to add value wherever he finds or he has any additional points. I have some of the suggestions or wish list for making this scheme more good, more attractive, that which government should reconsider. The first and foremost suggestion, that there should not be any budgetary restrictions. And why I am saying that is for the simple fact that unclear policies from government leads to bad decision making. If the government promises something and do not give it, it may happen that I may lose my profit margin in my export goods. So it's detrimental for exporters that there are unclear policies. If they have any budgetary restriction, they should make it very clear from day one that we will not allow more than this. At least exporters would be clear in terms of decision making. But if after 6 months suddenly government says that we don't have budget and we can't give this benefit, then it's a difficult situation for exporters. So my first submission for this scheme is there should not be budgetary restriction. The rates has to be re-reviewed because those are much less than MEIS. I understand government can't give similar to MEIS rates. However, they should really think that what best they can give. The exports from EOU, SEZ and MOVER also should be made eligible for RoDTEP because they also suffer those taxes and duties. Non-EDI port export should also be eligible. You can't make exporters who are exporting from a non-EDI port out of this scheme. You have to ensure as a government you are duty bound to ensure a level playing field for everybody. And on top of that, making EDI or not, it's government job. It's not exporter's job. I will export from my nearest port. I don't look at it whether it is EDI or not. And making such kind of policy restrictions based on administrative restrictions of government is not good for the exporters. I have suggestions for industry bodies and the exporters who has not submitted. Nawal sir has said in this initial remarks that hardly few companies have submitted the information which was sought before fixation of these rates. And some of the Export Promotion Council has again appealed to the exporters that you submit the information to them, they'll go back to government and seek revision in rate if genuinely it is required. We may cry that our rates are not up to MEIS. However, at the same time, it is my duty to submit information to government so that they take a rational decision. Without me submitting the information expecting government to give the correct benefit would be injustice for the government also. My next submission is there should not be separate application process for this scheme. Like government does for AIR, all industry drawback. Once I file shipping bill, that shipping bill itself is an application. That kind of methodology should be implemented so that the benefit would be directly credited to my e-ledger. The government should also clarify that can I utilize this script for social welfare cess, anti-dumping duties, safeguard duties, etc. While the policy is very clear that they want to restrict it to first scheduled duties, that is basic customs duties. Also, just to give in background, MEIS scripts were also not entitled for utilization for payment of these taxes. However, a clarification would help everybody, that it would help exporters that once they say that it would not be eligible, it would be clear for everybody. Now, most important way forward for exporters, what exporters should do. There are some action points we have noted down for exporters. The first thing, they should review their rates which are applicable to their products which they are exporting. And while reviewing rates, a special care has to be taken to note the value cap if it is mentioned for your product. You should not just look at the percentage. You should also look at the value cap column to see whether there is any cap mentioned, so that based on that you can make a decision on your export pricing. You should also review your export pricing considering these RoDTEP benefit. You may have decided your export price based on MEIS. You may have thought that government will give the benefit to the extent of MEIS and accordingly you may have exported the goods. Now the rates are out, and considering that, you should really re-review your export pricing. As an exporter, you should also review, now considering these RoDTEPs and certain ineligible categories of this, you have to compare which scheme is good for you. Whether EOU, whether mover, whether advance authorization, or whether I am an DTA unit who is claiming RoDTEP benefit. That evaluation has to be done. And most importantly, the last point is you should make representation to Export Promotion Council for inclusion of excluded product which we have talked about, and excluded export categories which we have talked about, and also submit the information which was sought in the earlier format. As an exporter, we have to be a responsible exporters. We should submit information so that a rational decision is taken. We understand that WTO has certain restriction. They have asked to give the benefit based on what are becoming cost. So the government also has to give the benefit to everybody for whom it is becoming a cost, and our duty is to submit the information to prove the government that what is the percentage of cost which we are getting for our export product. So these things are very important. As an exporter, you should take care. So to conclude, stay healthy, stay safe. Now over to Nawal sir also to give concluding remark, and we will take question and answers. I have got couple of questions which we will take. The first question which came is why EOUs and SEZs have been left out of the scheme, and export against advance license DFIs are also not eligible. Is this not totally unjust? Sir, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely right. Rather, when press release is there, this government is very good in packaging. They have announced that 8,555 items over and above items covered under RoSCTL has been announced. Now, out of that 8,555 items, if you take how much export they have allowed, how much exporters they have allowed RoDTEP. Let's take export is 100. Out of that, SEZ and EOU export, service export is almost 50 or more than 40%, 60%. So let's say 40 is left out. Now, out of that 50%, let us take goods are exported 50%, services are exported 50%. Services, there is no RoDTEP. Goods, there is a RoDTEP. But out of that 50%, EOU and SEZ contributes more than, you can say, 40% out of that. So 50% of 40% is out, 20%. So 70% of the export is out. Out of remaining 50, that advanced authorization holders or DFI authorization holders, almost you can say 30%. So 50% of 30% has gone.
Correct, sir.
So 15% has gone, almost 50 plus 20 plus 15. 85% of exports are not covered under RoDTEP. This is the summary statement. And 15% has covered under RoDTEP. Now that 15%, that too budgetary support. So it is something given but not given. This has to be talked about. Now the objective when you lay down, refund the non-refunded. I also said R1, R2, R3 form which was designed, which was talking about not first layer of a cost on petrol, diesel or stamp duty or other taxes of the state government levies, local authorities levies, when it is a part of indirect tax, and all those exporters are going to incur that. So you are basically beating your own principle, defeating your own principle, refund and non-refunded. So it is something, I will say, this total scheme has to be revisited. Every exporter has to be allowed, whether it is the SEZ, EOU, DFIA, MOI, advance authorization holder. All out of 14, first 3 you eliminate it because they are not incurring that cost anyway. But all that out of 14, 11 has to be included and they should be entitled for RoDTEP. And when you are projecting in your budget how much foreign exchange you are going to have it, because of export and import gaps. So you have the export projections also. Based on that, you have the collection of data. Based on that, you should make a budgetary provision. So you can't keep away, raising your hands, कि मेरे पास पैसा नहीं. Your government cannot become bankrupt. If this concept of government is becoming a bankrupt or not going back on the commitment, it happens, whole of the economy will be shaken. And that is the reason our advice to the exporter is, make it a strong representation through your Export Promotion Council. Make it a noise that, and if that is also not rescinded, government has announced very boldly refund and non-refunded. File the writ petition in the court of law. You are having a disparity between the exporter, and when I am also incurring, though I am a UOU, I am a SEZ, I am advance authorization, I am incurring those costs, and normal unit who is under drawback scheme is also incurring that cost. You are giving him back and you are not giving me back. Even he is not getting sufficiently. But at least I will also get something. So writ petition is only this one, and I can say, you make that petition only on that small ground, you will win. Let this scheme be opposed from tooth and nail until all types of exporters get this RoDTEP scheme. Because whole object is getting defeated.
Thank you, sir. Now another question, again interesting question came linked to GST, whether transfer of RoDTEP will have 0% GST as in MEIS.
You see, unfortunately this RoDTEP, like all industry rate drawback, you get directly in your bank account. Similarly, they should have given this RoDTEP directly to the bank account. No sooner they made as a scrip is the commodity, and MEIS or those scrip, duty-free scrip, were exempted. So it will, this is the scrip, and such type of scrip will be considered as an exempted supply, and no GST will be applicable, but it will be considered for the reversal of common inputs for exempted supply under Rule 42 and 43.
So as we are discussing that GST will be continued to be exempted because this is a kind of scrip government is talking about. The only flip side of it is that it would be termed as an exempt supply, and accordingly there may be some common reversal under Rule 42 or 43. Now one question also came that how I should pay back the ineligible benefit when I don't realize the export proceed. Of course, I'll answer to that question because it's very simple. The government has not yet clarified the process or mechanism. In the due course, they will specify how they are going to monitor the export realization, and also they would be also deciding how the repayment has to be made.
But Manoj, that is also available with the department.
Yeah.
Because when you receive the drawback, and if you don't receive the remittances, after some period, government wakes up and issues demand notice that you refund the drawback as well as along with interest. So similarly, that mechanism will be used and will be there, because now one has to know that IceGate site, RBI sites, all those are interlinked, so that remittances, because BRC is also now eBRC, so that can be linked and that can be noticed.
Correct. So another question, sir, came is whether export under EPCG would also be entitled for RoDTEP.
Answer is yes.
Yes.
But if you are under your EPCG and advance authorization, no. If you are under EPCG and non-industry rate, answer is yes.
Okay, I'll go to next question. Interesting again question, whether RoDTEP is applicable on export of invoices in INR. There is no restriction.
Now this is the very tricky question, because the way, whole the thing which has been designed to satisfy exporters, but in reality not to satisfy. So today, though it is not been mentioned that payment in foreign currency only will be entitled for this, but I keep my fingers crossed, INR may be denied. Because today, when you are getting in INR other than escrow account, even the advance authorization export obligation is not fulfilled. And that is the reason I keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, so I mean, you are saying that tomorrow the Department of Revenue
Will
should not
come.
come with some clarification
Absolutely
that
right.
you should get in freely convertible. However,
Or
as on
escrow
date,
account, or if you are receiving INR through escrow account, Vostro account,
correct.
then yes. Otherwise,
So, however, as sir is saying, the policy do not mandate that the realization has to be in a freely convertible currency. As long as FEMA allows through Vostro account, as sir is saying, you are eligible for getting RoDTEP. Another question came on FTP, sir. Existing FTP policy when it would be revised. Any thoughts on that? I know it is difficult to.
yes. No, you see, foreign trade policy, it's something like, coming. So, it was supposed to be ended in 2020. Now we are at the August. But what is now last news of announcing foreign trade policy is 1st October. Let us wait. Twice suggestions were invited. I don't know how many of you have given the suggestions. At least Bitsol has given more than 600 suggestions to the new foreign trade policy, and we are confident that most of them will come. Let's hope so.
So another question on the process side, can MEIS be converted into RoDTEP script?
No, absolutely no.
So the answer is simple, no, you cannot convert.
And why you want to convert? What is the benefit? Nothing.
So there is a question that is there any single script with some limit, or there would be shipping bill wise benefit, how I can club? On
No,
that I'll
it is very simple. Na? Electronic credit ledger, electronic script ledger is prepared. So no sooner you are exporting, that will be automatically, it should appear digitally to your electronic credit ledger through some mechanism which will be announced.
correct.
And that balance, whole the balance you can transfer rather than even partial balance you can transfer, so that script wise balance need not to be transferred.
So it is at
That
your
should be
option,
at
as
your
sir
option.
is saying that you can decide. Another question, whether RoDTEP is applicable for all countries.
Yeah, absolutely yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for this question. As you are rightly guided us, the policy do not restrict export to any specific country for getting the benefit. There are certain question on MEIS, sir, when they'll give the balance MEIS.
GKW, God knows when.
Another question came that if you are selling goods to customer in US but goods are shipped in India, whether RoDTEP would be entitled.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The goods are sold to a party in US,
Right.
however the goods have not moved out of India.
Export, it is not the export. Export means goods should cross the custom frontier of India. Then only it is export.
So to summarize the answer for this, as the goods are not getting exported, you will not be entitled for RoDTEP in this transaction. We understand such kind of transaction happens when you are selling your tools to your customers, you are keeping it with you, or you are shipping to some another manufacturer in India. Such transactions are not termed as an export. Also from a GST perspective, it is not export, so you will not be entitled for any RoDTEP benefit. So I think we have covered close to 20 questions we have answered. Some we have answered online, some we have answered through text. There were certain questions in particular for the rate for specific products. You can contact us for those rates. We will let you know which exact rates with the benefit. So I hope you have enjoyed the session. and we will continue to have further sessions imparting or sharing what knowledge we have. That's our motto, that we should share all our knowledge. We appreciate your feedback. If you have any feedbacks, you can give us the feedbacks on it. So thank you very much for joining. Sir, any concluding remark?
Thank you very much, and exporters, let us fight for our own cause, and we are there to support you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you have any further questions, do connect us on our website or our corporate at Bizsolindia. We would be happy to help you. Thank you very much.